So we now have a class called person, and I changed that from people from my previous video. How did I do that? I right-clicked on person, I clicked rename. It allowed me to rename this class. I also renamed the file. I was able to right-click on the file, and I clicked rename. Additionally, in my main method, I changed person here. I was able to right-click and rename on the object, which allowed me to rename all instances of the usage of that. So now that we have the right terminology for this, let's talk a little bit about some other types of classes or types inside C#. First is an enum. I would recommend creating enums as a separate file, but you could, outside of the class, type enum, and we'll call this maybe hair color. And I can actually create my own list of enums in here. But again, I highly would not recommend using this. So what would you do? What would I do? Come out here. We can create an add. It's a class. I'm going to create an empty class. We'll call this one hair color. I'm going to change this to enum instead of a class. Get rid of the constructor. And now we can list out, and maybe we'll do black, red, and brown. So now I have an enum. I can come back to my class here, and I can actually create this property if I wanted to. So prop, what type is it? Hair color. We'll name this one hair color. Whoops. So we can use the get and set features just like that if we wished. And so now I can come out to here and we can give my person a hair color. And we can say maybe blonde. And there's other ways we can go through this. But remember, the purpose of an enum is to have a controlled data type that you can customize. Many things you can use with enum. I would recommend looking at some of the documentation that's provided so you can continue forward. Another aspect that you've talked about in 1260 is something called inheritance. So let's talk about what inheritance is. Let's create a new class. Let's call this a child. And we'll say that the child inherits from person. Notice how the inheritance factor, or the inheritance notation is done. So I can use inheritance. Now that means child inherits everything from person. So now that I have access to person, I can call upon person. So I can say this, and I have access to all of the inherited values. There's no special keyword needed here. So if I wanted to say for this child, I can say this first name, and I can use it as a setter. So I can just say now I have direct access to that person. Inheritance in C# is much easier. I have direct access to anything as long as I have the appropriate accessibility to it. Notice that I won't have access to directly to the underscore age that's in person. Why? Because it's private. But if I wanted it to be, we can attach protected to it. And now age is accessible. Now, some of the last things I would like to talk about is arrays, collections, dictionaries. hopefully you've read the PowerPoints and looked through them, but the collections class, which will go into more detail about how the collection class was created, how it was generated, some of the methods involved, but the general understanding between them is very similar to that of Java. So as you can see here, I have a person, generate a new person, we've created some information, but let's create a list. Now, a list, very similar to the array list in Java, can be it's a holding or a collection of, let's just say, many person. And this is where we would call them people. Now, I'm able to add objects to this, so I can say people.add, and I can add the person that we created. I can say people.add. We can say a new person. And not to over extenuate, but I'm able to create a new person, and actually I can use the setters in here, and we can say, we use my wife's name. And I'm able to, at that moment in time, generate a new person into that list. And so now I have 2 people in this list. So if we wanted to, we can do something like this. For each item in the person class, so in this person, or in the people list, excuse me. So if for each item in that people list, let's grab what we were wanting to say, and instead of it, we can just say it's item, which it would be for each item, and it would be this thing called a person, or how it pulls each of them out, but we just say it's an item. I should now be able to generate Matthew and Jordan. Oops. As represented here. So I have this collection. So a list, very similar to your array list. Another important concept is this thing called a dictionary. A dictionary has this key value pair system. So I can have many things, just like a dictionary has. The thing is a key must be unique. The value could be duplicate, but the key must be unique. So I can have something like, I have a string. I have a dictionary of maybe string, and we'll just say that this will be maybe we'll just say key value pairs equals a new dictionary of string. And so now I can say my key value pairs. I can add a key value pair. So I can say something like maybe first name. And we can say something like Matthew. And now we can say key value pairs dot add last name. These are different, so I'm able to do that. I can say just Jordan's. But I cannot do something like this. This would be invalid. I can't add another first name here because we are going to get an error at runtime, and I'll show you what that error is right now. The exception says an item with the same key has already been added. So this is just another collection. Now let's do it the correct way. So let's delete this. Let me stop my operation here. Let's delete this out. So now I have a key value pair. What's the benefit of it? Well, if I wanted to, there's a couple things I can do. I can go through each item. Whoops. So for each item in my key value pair situation here. So let's take a look at my key value pair. We can print out item dot. We can get maybe the key, or we can get each value. So let me get the key, and we'll get the value each time. And you should see where I can duplicate this dictionary in such a way, right? So got the first name of Matthew, last name of Desjardins. So this is just a different way to have a collection. Think of it as a dictionary where I can have a key and some type of value. So that was just my quick demonstration of almost everything you've covered in 1250, 1260. Couple of the things that we haven't covered in more depth would be interfaces, probably some of the best practices for searching and finding those algorithms that are in best places. That's not something I will talk about. Probably introduce a new topic called a dictionary that you have never seen before. You may have. In Java, this would be a good hex map or a mapping. So you would be a map to this value. So that would be its comparable. So in these two demonstrations here, you've covered almost everything that's covered in 1250, 1260. Now where you're going to get the practice is the upcoming lab, where we're going to now take all these concepts and actually produce some type of project. If you have questions regarding this, please send me an email. I'll be glad to assist in any way. Look forward to the next video.